There we
Hey,
go.
hey, 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 there we are. Welcome, everybody. Feels like it's been a while, so it's good to be
Yes, it has.
back. It has. Welcome to episode 17, for those still counting. Our Google Doc is counting, of the Codified Security Office Hours. Steve, you look like you are not in your secret lair today. Whereabouts do you hark from?
I should give a shout out. I said I would. I'm at a
Cool.
recruiter in downtown London called Investigo. They're very good friends of ours because they have a whole cybersecurity wing. So if you're looking for a job in cybersecurity,
Nice.
Investigo.co.uk. Enough of that. Their their meeting rooms are very, very white. So
Although
you-
we were just saying off stream, usually with downlighting fluorescent rooms, you kind of look like you're telling a ghost story the wrong way around. But actually, the whiteness of the room means the light is pretty evenly distributed. So maybe it's done on purpose.
yeah, I'm probably going to get some form of like snow blindness as a result of this. So probably should get going.
Sure, I get that. Right. Well, without further ado, we're going to change things up a bit for regular viewers from usual. I know we'd usually kind of talk news and all that. We're going to do that a little bit later because I would love to welcome to the virtual stage Saar. Saar is one of our wonderful Bridgecrew engineering team. And even though he said just before this, I'm like, yo, you still good to do the talk? He's like, yeah, the talk should be fine, but then I do need to get back to doing some things in production. So in true engineering spirit, welcome, Saar, and you're going to talk to us about something very exciting, right?
Right. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Awesome.
It's so rare we get actual engineers on the show. So if you're
Right.
watching, set your record. You're never going to see this again.
So set your phasers to record because we
Yes.
have an actual engineer that knows exactly what is going on with the code, unlike myself. So yes, there has been a massive announcement at Bridgecrew recently. We're all very excited about it. Saar is the man with the plan that can show us it, and it's all around a pretty current industry topic of supply chain security. And so, yeah, Saar, how do you fit into the whole supply chain security work at Bridgecrew, and what do you want to show us today?
So basically, I've orchestrated the MVP for the supply chain graph screen. We have a new screen with the supply chain graph. We have a bunch of exciting features in this new screen. And I would like to show you the new screen.
That would be amazing. Sure, we will
Great.
get rid of our awful faces and give you the screen.
Great. So let's talk a bit about supply chain attack. So basically, we as engineers use and develop different services. On part of them, we run third-party libraries, we deploy images, we configure them using infrastructure as code, we use CI/CD, etc. Now, let's assume basically there's a vulnerability in one of those resources or packages and so on. A hacker could use any vulnerability in one of them and effectively affect those services directly. This is basically a supply chain attack. Now, let's talk about the challenges we are dealing with when we need to deal with those attacks. Basically, we have a couple of challenges. One is basically understanding where's the vulnerability. The second one is basically after we found it, we need to understand the blast radius. Like if it's a vulnerable package, what other files might have been affected or different services, etc. And the third thing basically we need to handle is basically we need to resolve it. So it might take a little bit of time. So our solution for those challenges is basically the supply chain graph, a graph where we can find the hottest dependencies, the most vulnerable ones, and their links to files they are basically based in, connection to other files, different services, while relying on the repository they are based in. Now I want to show you the new screen. Let me share my screen. All right, so we are on our platform. I'll go straight into the supply chain screen. So basically, I'm gonna first pick my Git repository. For this one, I'm going to use a prepared one, a vulnerable by design repository called SupplyGoat. And basically what you are going to see now is the graph expanding from my organization name to the basically the repository, the most vulnerable files. So it might be a terraform file or a package log JSON, or it might even be some kind of a Docker file. And for each and any one of them, I'm gonna see basically the different vulnerable or misconfigured resources or packages, etc. Now, what can I see here? Basically, I have a full visualization of my screen, right? I can basically, of my system. I can basically see all my system right here. I could pick another repository I have. This one is called TerraGoat1, and basically see the hottest dependencies, resources, or packages, or files, etc. Or let's say I want to filter out only specific files, right? So I want to see only the misconfigured Terraform files, right? So I'm going to use this filter right here. And then it's going to give me only the most vulnerable or misconfigured Terraform files, right? Now let's pick right here a vulnerable package JSON. By the way, I can also pick only open vulnerabilities, or I might pick those who have passed, right? Because Checkov basically will tell you regarding any past resources, or perhaps a suppressed one. Another great thing we have in this screen is basically the ability to fix every fixable misconfiguration and vulnerability we have in the specific repository. How we do it is basically by clicking right here on the submit pull request. What we see here basically the list of all of the errors, or basically the vulnerabilities and misconfiguration we have in the specific repository. And then when I click right here on submit a pull request, it takes a while to create all of the fixes, but eventually I'm gonna see right here in my repository a pull request, right? And right here I can see all the different fixes and policies. I can basically just pick one and see what is it about, or I can see what files have been changed. So right here I can see that I have MNTF file.
Hey, just to let you know, Saar, we're still seeing the supply chain graph. So we've not switched over to the pull request. No worries, though. This is super cool.
Let me share it.
I will let you know when it appears on the stream. Yeah, no worries.
I'm glad you said that, because I was like, what?
I could smell what the rock was cooking. It's like it smells like it should be a pull request here.
Can you see it right now?
Cool. Oh, there we go. Okay,
Great.
so you clicked create pull request in the
Right here.
in the supply chain, and now we get this new pull request in SupplyGoat.
Right. So I have this pull request where I can basically see the list of fixes, and basically I can see the different files and the submitted code, or basically the new and updated package JSON file or package log JSON file right here, according to the findings right here, right? Sorry, I'm on the PR again. So let's assume we see here the marked package. I'll stop my screen and share again the supply
Yeah,
chain.
no problems.
So we can see right here, it's a vulnerable package, basically fixing the PR. Besides that, I can see right here in the Resource Explorer, the data regarding the specific resource. I've clicked right here. Now, besides that, I can basically go through different pages, because right here you see only the 5 hottest files or the 5 hottest resources. So I can pick the next 5 right here. So in this case, I have only one more, or click right here to find the next 5 hottest files. But that's not everything we have right here. Another thing we have right here is basically the search engine. So let's assume I want to find vulnerable S3 buckets. So I can find right here S3. I'm gonna wait. I think we have. Sorry, 1 second. Let's take another example. So for instance, I want to search for EC2. We have a minimum of 3 characters, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry. Let me try something else.
Yeah, that looks like it. That changed, definitely.
All right, so I can see right here the specific package I was searching for. And then when I click on it, it would basically open up the specific package and expand all around, just to see anything this package is connected to. So
oh, cool. So if there was like a log4j package,
right,
for example, to do with supply chain, you could find everything that touches that package within your entire infrastructure.
Right. So in this case, I don't have a log4j example, but right, exactly. I can write right here log4j, and it would basically expand anything this package is connected to. And then I could understand basically what is the blast radius, and then fix it by clicking on submit a pull request. And that's it.
That is so very, very cool. Yeah, thanks for showing us that.
Thank you.
Right.
So I have a question
So,
for
like,
you. Well, do you mind
go
if
for
I
it,
just
Steve.
throw one in there? So that bulk pull request create that has all the fixes. I mean, that's new, right? That wasn't something like before. I'd created pull requests for individual fixes, but I never
Right.
had a moment where I could see, here's the lot, bang, do it. That's a new
Right.
thing, is it? Okay,
So
cool.
this is a new feature we've introduced for the supply chain screen, where we can basically create a PR for all of the different fixes of the specific repository.
That is cool.
I agree.
That is cool. I have a question as well. I'm sure we probably have like 50 questions, to be honest, but we won't do them all. So like we are constantly talking when we give presentations, when we kind of do demos, we're constantly talking about how some people care about CVEs and vulnerabilities in code and dependencies, and other people historically have cared about misconfigurations in cloud. And it's only by kind of looking at the attack chain of like, I've got these CVEs and they're exposed by these infrastructure misconfigurations. Those are the things that really matter, right? Because if something's misconfigured in the woods and no one can find it, then does it really matter? Whereas this screen is showing you like the attack vectors and kind of showing you which of your CVEs is most likely to be attacked via bad infrastructure decisions or vice versa. And you can see all of that on that kind of one graph, right?
Right. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a previous colleague of mine. So we talked about this log4j issue, where they basically had to search what is the source file, what is it affecting, etc. So I told her basically you could use this graph just to understand exactly what is the source file or files, and what is basically the blast radius, what is it affecting. This is the power of this new screen. I personally absolutely love it.
That's cool.
It seems to be the first place I would go now. I know we have a dashboard. I know that's very effective, but when it came up, well, this will be my second question. Who has access to this? Does anybody who has Bridgecrew as a SaaS solution have it, or are they waiting for it? Or do they need to apply for it? Because I think it's anybody watching this is going to be, I want it, because it is the first thing I would go to.
Right, of course. So basically, if you are, if this is your question, basically, if you are a Bridgecrew or Palo Alto customer, you can basically go into this new screen we have.
It's there now. Because I
So
think what's funny
it's not behind a feature flag or anything. It's just fully accessible to anyone. People will see that page.
Exactly.
Sweet.
I think because there's going to be people. Well, there's customers I've spoken to who love the office hours, and they learn from these sessions. And they're going to be like, "What?" And they're going to be logging in to find this. And go, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, I think it's a really huge breakthrough.
Very, very cool.
You know,
Not
personally,
just
sorry.
No, go for it.
Personally, when I go now and see in my RSS feed a new vulnerability, I can basically just search for it right here. This is amazing.
Very, very cool.
I asked it like an engineering question.
Right.
That's all right. Sorry, Matt. The reason and the way we can create this visualization or this observability into supply chain, I suppose that's what it qualifies for. Is this something that we're generating because we're generating an underlying graph of Terraform? Is that the root engineering that is kind of backing this?
So all of us, or I hope most of us, know Checkov, our open source, which basically give us results of scans over infrastructure as code files and basically different packages and images, right? So each day we scan the repositories of Bridgecrew and Palo Alto customers. And then basically we persist all of the different files and resources and packages. This way we basically are able to expand this graph step by step, if that answers your question.
Totally. You actually did it. Yeah, you said exactly the thing I was hoping you were going to say. You tapped into the fact that it all starts with Checkov, and then how do we scale the capabilities of Checkov into a platform? And this is what you get. This is the kind of incredible capability. That's awesome. Love it.
I agree.
That is amazing, and you're more than welcome to hang out, Saar, for the rest of the office hours. But I believe you have some pressing production magic to go and wave over our systems.
Yep, I agree. Thank you for having me, guys.
All right, thanks, Saar.
Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, super cool. And as Saar mentioned, if you want to go and check that out, just bridgecrew.cloud, sign up. Every account has this feature. So yeah, thank you so much for the demo, Saar. Have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Very cool stuff. I can't remember the last time we did a demo that was that like cool and hard hitting, to be honest. I think we need to step our game up a little bit.
But one of the first times we've got a proper engineer who made it on the show.
Right. Yeah. Like this is my baby. Let me show you the way.
Oh, yeah,
very cool.
What's next? We kind of led with the opening act, with the headline.
We led with the opening act. So I guess our usual like inane chat about the news and what's been going on and interesting security stuff. Should usually go first, but since we wanted to be respectful of Saar's time, let's talk that. I'm guessing because you're in a very white room in a recruitment office, you don't actually have a beer with you today.
I'm empty-handed. Sorry.
I know. I'm drinking for both of us. Then I'm on a little BrewDog Hazy Jane, just because it was in my fridge.
They brought me a cup of tea.
Oh, that's cool. Look at
And they
that.
get a plug.
Second shout out. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time at the girlfriend's, kind of playing nurse because she's just come out of hospital. She's fine, but yeah, I have like next to nothing in, so I had a quick look in my fridge and I'm like, oh, Hazy Jane, that'll do.
The rescue.
That is perfect office hours material.
Absolutely.
So
Land
yeah,
on your feet.
what's been going on in the news recently? I've been kind of deep in my own code world, to be honest. I haven't really been paying much attention. Anything that springs to mind from you?
Oh, you totally set me up there. Anything that springs to mind?
Oh, there we go.
That was not intentional. I'm going to paste something in the comments. All right, there we go. I just popped something in the comments. If you want to check out the recent Spring Vulnerabilities blog by Unit 42, it goes through all of the different variations, good, bad, all ugly, essentially, of
Interesting.
and various mitigations that you can do for the wide variety. This was a blog released March 31st, so it's super new, super hot off the press. Everyone's talking about it. Go check it out. And actually, I'm being biased because it's our team's thing, but
our friends at Unit 42.
Well, yeah, but I went through a lot of blogs, and a lot of them, they're either trying to and then go buy a product, whereas actually I thought this was a really good breakdown. So it kind of won in spite of my bias.
Just like pure research for, yeah, we have found this. This is what you need to know.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It does a little bit of propping up Prisma Cloud, but nevertheless, it's a good breakdown.
Awesome. Very cool. I mean, not very cool if you're running, Spring, but
no.
The Cloud Foundry Java folks will be scratching their head, I'm sure. But anyway, cool. The vulnerabilities go on. And then I guess, I'm not sure how we're going to follow such a pretty graphical, beautiful demo as that, but we have some really exciting open source updates, features, right? You've been working hard on some very cool Kubernetes stuff. I've been writing some interesting code around Kustomize. Which do you want to do first? I think you should probably introduce the admission controller, really.
I'll do the basics of the admission controller. I've got my screen share to work, so I'll start with that. If
cool.
You know what an admission controller is, admission controller is I've been referring to it as the bouncer at the door of the club, right? You get to the club,
right?
The bouncer looks at you and goes, "Are you carrying a baseball bat? What kind of shoes you got on? All right, you seem okay. I don't need to know your back history. I don't care if you've got a criminal record. I don't care. You look okay. Off you go. None of the really bad things are obvious, and that's kind of what we're depending on an admission controller to be for us. Because if the code or the infrastructure as code of the YAML has got that far, ideally, it's already passed through some form of authentication, right? And if it hasn't, we've got a lot more work to do. But if it has, we're just checking to make sure that it's not running as root, it's not privileged, a small host of other really obvious no-brainer things that we're just not going to let run in our cluster. That's what the admission.
Just that usual defense, in depth. This should have been stopped if it's bad miles down the pipeline before it even gets towards the cluster. But just in case, let's say the cluster is managed by a team that doesn't manage the rest of the DevOps pipeline, they can enforce their own, non-negotiable security limits.
You got it. And what's cool about the fact that it's Checkov under the hood is that people are already using Checkov in the IDE. They're using it in CI. They might be using it in pre-commit. And it gives them consistency of policy, and it gives security a little piece of Checkov that they're in control of. And they can put that into the cluster and hope that it never triggers, because if those other gates are in place, we're good to go. No one will ever even know the admission controller's there. That's the good thing about an admission controller, and having consistency of policy across it. Now, I should realize I'm just sharing a screen for no reason here. The setup for it is super simple. You can go to our docs. It's in our docs. It's pretty straightforward. it just gets you to curl a setup script, and you can see I've got it here. I can cat it, but it's not particularly exciting. You can just see that what it does is it goes and grabs everything you need, asks you all the right questions, creates all the certs that you need for communication between the Kube API server and the validating webhook, and then deploys everything you need into a namespace called Bridgecrew, which if you are running our runtime cron, you probably already have, so that's fine. And if you do a little get pods after you're done, you should see it a couple, just for, let's say resiliency validation webhooks running, ready to roll. And that's it. Now, if I want to delete it, it's easy enough. I could just do -delete -f. And that directory is the directory that it generates when it installs. That's got all the manifests, everything you need. And ideally, I pop that into Git now. And that would be part of my deployment. Right. And I'd be Git opsing my creation
for your cluster repo for wherever you're storing your cluster config.
Yeah, for reproducibility of all of this. The one thing I'd like to point out before I'm going to, I think I don't need to demo it because I think, Matt, you're going to do that. But if you want to see what it is we're going to block, you can go to the Checkov config and you'll see what hopefully is a really familiar Checkov config file. It's just wrapped in a config map. You can see it's going to create a virtual file within the pod file system.
Literally just Checkov YAML. Okay.
It's just Checkov, and it just creates a .checkov YAML. And if you want to see what I'm doing a hard fail on these policies. Now, if you don't like those policies and you want to reduce them, or you think that's not enough and you want to increase them, just add more policy. And you've got policy as code. And that's it. That's all you have to do to customize it for, let's say, dev or prod, or make it slightly different. It's pretty wide open and pretty visible. So it's pretty flexible. I do have some big plans. This is, let's say, when we say it's in beta, I think it's in 0. I gave it 0.7 as a version number. Because by the time it gets to 1, I really want it to be doing a lot more. Like, for example, when you deploy the validating admission controller, I'm going to create some CRDs that store the current state so that you have some awareness that says, okay, well, I'm here now, but some of the stuff you've already deployed, I would have blocked. So I'd like you to be able to query the admission controller to find out what's the current state of my cluster. Is it all still in a passing state? Stuff like that. So that's something we might do as our 1.0 launch in the future. But for now, it works just great. Blocking deployments that are not up to scratch. Now I was going to show you this, but Matt's taken this, combined it with his work in Customize, and is on his way toward creating not just a killer demo, but a killer workshop. So is this a good time to hand kind of over to you to introduce almost a sneak preview of that?
Happy to give a sneak preview. Yeah. And I've just put, by the way, up on the screen and in the chat a link to introducing Checkov config files back from previous episodes and blogs on when that feature came into Checkov. So if you need to know what to put in those config files, follow that blog. And if you want to go and do that super simple install of that admission controller, the admission controller code with the setup script Steve just ran is there at that link as well. By the way, listeners and viewers, you may have realized I have the power of the StreamYard today, and it feels wonderful. I've never actually run a stream with it, and it's great. I shout out to them. It's so simple.
It goes to your head, the power. You can remove me from the stream at any time. One of the people who I got it. One other shout out for people who like the controller is if you go into the integrations section of bridgecrew.cloud, there's a new integration there.
Is there?
Yeah, it says admission controller. Do you have a bridgecrew.cloud handy as part of your demo?
I do. Let me do that right now. You talk and I will show.
So go to your integrations, and there are so many integrations, ladies and gentlemen, because it's so well connected. So you should have it. If you go down to past CI/CD,
pretty integrations.
There it is. There, Kubernetes admission control.
Look at that right there.
So that wasn't there. So the thing I just did, the instructions are there if you click it. It makes you create a token. Of course, everything wants a unique token. And then it will. What's funny is you don't have to copy it. I realized that when I did it the first time. It automatically populates it later on. So there's the curl. And
Look
you
at
see
that.
it's auto-populated. You didn't have to copy the key. It's just there. And it's with
Yeah.
the cluster name. So you just need to execute that.
Very cool.
And that's what I did. That's the setup script, and you're off to the races. So pretty cool.
Very nice. Very.
Right. Now,
I must have missed that. Actually, that's very cool that it generates that. Okay, while I have my screen share on the go, I am going to introduce a little improvement to our Kubernetes support, since this episode seems to be half about supply chain and half about Kubernetes. So if you're a Kubernetes fan, if you've been like, these guys just talk about terraform and cloudformation, this is the episode for you, I guess. We have had a few requests that, obviously, while we already scanned plain Kubernetes manifests, a lot of people are not consuming them from Kubernetes manifest directly. They're consuming them through Helm, and we added basic Helm support a good few months ago. But obviously the new player on the block, because it's now integrated as part of kubectl or kubectl, or I'm not getting into that holy war, is Kustomize. And Kustomize is a very simple templating language that allows you to define a base. If you've not seen it before, so for example, here is my base saying, hey, yeah, my base is made of these two YAML files, deployment and service. As you can see, very, very simple Kubernetes here. And then from that, I can extend it with overlays. So a simple overlay might literally have nothing changed in the base, but might define a namespace in the customization itself, so that this and any future additions I make to it are going to be in a dev namespace. Or it might go the whole hog and say, well, for prod, we have, again, a different namespace, but we also merge in these improvements or changes to our base. So we have, all of these security related pieces that need to be merged with our base. And maybe some changes to the service as well. And then Kustomize will basically generate a resultant set of Kubernetes manifests for either an overlay or just spit out the base if you want the base. Anyway, it's a way of not copying and pasting the same hundreds of lines of YAML for multiple environments that probably only have a few changes. And also it stops people doing it manually with like sed and regex in their CI pipeline, which I guess is how you would have done that beforehand. So yeah, it's a solution to that problem. So we have added the ability for Checkov to find these customization.yaml files and render them out, and also understand what is a base, what is an overlay, rather than you just having to like piece this all together and then add Checkov at the end. So let me give you an example. I am currently in Kustomize Goat. Ooh, that reminds me, Steve, put on your little virtual notepad that we should talk about. We should talk about Supply Goat after this, because Bridgecrew has many goats. But Kustomize Goat is, as you can imagine, like TerraGoat, like CloudFormation Goat. It's a small repo we've created of purposely vulnerable customized configuration just for training and kind of demoing this kind of stuff. And as you can see, it's got a base with some very insecure, non-security related deployment stuff in it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run Checkov, and I don't want it to try finding Terraform or anything else. So I'm going to tell it that I just care about the customized framework, and I'm going to tell it to scan the whole subdirectory under our customized Goat repo. And what we're going to see, this is going to spit out, obviously it's going to find the base. I'm going to have to do a fair amount of scroll back here. So it's going to find the base. And it's also going to find all the overlays. And you can see here we have hey, this is this component, but this is this component from the persona of an overlay called dev. And obviously we have an overlay called dev. So one interesting thing about customize is there's actually no names for customize objects in the customization file themselves. And so we are taking, and generally this is how I can see most people using it, we're taking the name of the folder structure as a unique reference to whether you're in this environment with this customization YAML or this one, for example. So you'll see here that we can see all these overlays. And if I keep scrolling up, you'll also see that we will also have scanned the base, because the base itself is valid Kubernetes as well. So we've scanned all of them. And if you say, well, actually, the only one I care about is one of my overlays, then the Checkov customized support understands that as well. So if I, instead of scanning the whole directory, I just say custom overlays dev, then all we're going to see is the results of the fully rendered customized template, including the base, which is merged in, but from the perspective of that dev output. And so there you go. So we see dev, and it will just show us the dev overlay and none of the others. Obviously, version 1 of the framework, eagle eyes amongst you will notice that we're referring to the customization.yaml file right now for each of these, which will get you at least to, the correct reference to which base it's referring to, because bases can be pulled from remote Git, they can be pulled from local directories. So we're putting you in the right place to work out what rendered this. But obviously it's not taking you directly to the specific line of the specific file that has been merged in there. And also we're relying on the customize or versions of kubectl that actually have the customized binary in them. So this framework will auto disable itself for the sanity of existing CI/CD pipelines if it cannot find a usable customize or kubectl binary. But all that said, I still think that's super useful for people consuming customize right now.
I think it's amazing. What's really particularly cool is that, like, before this got added to Checkov, I'd used, let's say, probably every possible tool out there on the command line that parses YAML for misconfigurations. And it falls apart on customize because the overlays themselves can look like total gibberish from
just duplicates of environments
just not even like names, because that's only the overriding objects that will be present. It's like a class structure, right? I only need to override the security context, so I'm going to override the security context. The basis of the construct is there, but like it's not a deployable object on its own. So a lot of the scanners look at it and go, "What the heck's this?" If it doesn't render the output, many of the YAML scanners just don't work. So the fact that Checkov handles all of that, to me, is awesome.
Yeah, agreed. And shout out to Mike and a few of the other community members that have made the Kubernetes scanner itself so resilient to, fragments of Kubernetes, because I definitely cheated what we're basically doing. And by all means, dig through the code if you want to see this. We're doing the same for Kubernetes, Customize and Helm. Our frameworks are like sub-frameworks. Once they detect that they have found some Customize, they do the work to template out the Customize and then build a database of references from the temporary Customize files back to the real customization.yaml files to do this bit. But then what we're basically doing is we're passing those temporary directory structures to the existing Kubernetes scanner. So if you want to add a rule to scan your Customize, if you want some company specific things, you just need to add them as standard Checkov Kubernetes policies into Checkov, and they will automatically apply to any of your Customize or your Helm output as well, which seemed more sensible than duplicating all the rule sets. So yay, developer ease of use 101, I guess.
Yeah, reuse. How about that?
There we go. Reuse right here. So moving on from that, to give a sneak peek of, you know, the workshop that Steve alluded to, where we're kind of using the customized support in framework, customized framework support in Checkov, and the work Steve was just showing on the Checkov admission controller to actually build up a working kind of CD environment that uses the Checkov admission controller to prevent bad customized getting into your environment. Pardon me. And you can see I'm actually working on the CloudFormation that builds out this workshop environment at the moment. And so you can't get to that, by the way, so don't try. And what we have here is an Argo installation running on top of a kind Kubernetes in Docker Kubernetes cluster. And in that Kubernetes cluster, we've run that really simple setup script that Steve was just showing to do the admission controller installation. And what you can see here, it's based off Kubernetes Goat. So what you can see here is we've configured two environments. We've configured one running customize overlays dev, which is here, which is basically just the base, as I've said. And we've got another one running overlays prod, which has a lot more security related goodness. And basically this is a known, a known good deployment, which will add all of the security pieces to make it a CIS 1.6 compliant deployment. So it's checking all of the boxes that Checkov or any other tools will flag up as bad. We're correcting all those errors. And Steve's actually got a blog post on the Bridgecrew blog about going through all those errors and fixing those if you're interested in how to know which of these Kubernetes objects to add. And so what we can see really simply here is Argo in true GitOps style has noticed these two deployments in my fork of Customized Goat. It's realized that neither of them are running on my Kubernetes cluster. So it's tried to synchronize both of them. And if I look at this one, you can see it's synchronized okay. It's synced. This is a working lab environment, so I've not quite got my health checks right for our service load balancer, but you can see our deployment is happy, and we're running two pods, running Steve's customized Goat Nginx web interface, and everything's gone through onto the cluster. We can see there's GET requests from the liveness probe. Everything's running as it should do. Whereas if we compare that to exactly the same repo or development environment for Customized Goat, you can see that the synchronize failed. The load balancer was deployed because there were no security issues in the load balancer, at least not ones that we're checking for by default in the admission controller. But then we can see that there's no objects downstream of the deployment for Customized Goat in the dev environment. And if we click on the error, we can see that the message back is from admission webhook. The Bridgecrew admission webhook service denied the request. Issues in violation of admission policy. So containers should not run with allow privilege escalation. There's a guidance link. Minimize admission of root containers. There's a guidance link. And, we can see that it's retried it, and each time the admission controllers blocked it. And obviously, this is not a nice way of viewing misconfiguration issues. So we also get a link directly back to our Bridgecrew environment, which will load up that exact CI/CD run through and give you a way of visualizing these issues. So you can see it's my username, the cluster name I gave in the integration that we were just showing earlier for integrating into Bridgecrew. And then when this loads, we can see it gives us the Kubernetes manifest from the running cluster. You'll notice, cube heads in here will notice the status stuff. So this is a runtime manifest rather than a pre-deploy manifest. And you can see all of the things wrong with the manifest that was deployed, not just the things that the admission controller blocked on, because as Steve was saying with the config file, you can choose what you care about in terms of which which things you care about in the admission controller. But once this is in Bridgecrew, it will show you that actually there are 17 issues with this manifest, memory limits, etc., etc. And you can choose like how much you care about low priority. In fact, let's just say critical about what we do. There we go. And there are the two issues that our admission controller was caring about. So we've got allow privilege escalation and root containers. And that is a sneak preview of cool things happening with Kubernetes and Checkov and Customize and all of that stuff beginning with a K. Don't think there was anything else, was there, Steve? Anything else I missed?
No, that's good, actually. And if people are unfamiliar, I think, just to add to what you said there, there's a lot more to the manifest than maybe you'd be expecting. That's listed in Bridgecrew. You're like, whoa, there's all this stuff. But that's sometimes, if it looks unfamiliar, that's because that's the manifest as interpreted by Kubernetes itself, because that's the manifest the API server sends to the webhook. So I'm putting visibility of the entire thing. But I mean, if you're watching this video after the fact, or you want to join the Codified Security Slack, I'm curious as to whether I should remove the status section and leave you just with the manifest, that as it looks, as the more read-friendly version of it. So I'm thinking of just tidying up some of the Bridgecrew, let's say, side of things. So there's, I think I'm probably going to, yeah, I'm thinking of like creating an admission controller channel within the Slack channel, just to see if people want to get, chime in on where we can take it in the future. Because I think there's so many things I could do with it. I just want to do the things people want first.
I love that. Yeah. And if you're watching after the fact, the link to join our Slack is down there. Otherwise, just reach out to us at Bridgecrew.io on Twitter. Or if you're watching right now, please do leave a comment and tell Steve, good idea, bad idea. I guess I really liked the idea you were talking about earlier with having a CRD, maybe like Checkov pre-Checkov remediation suggestions or something as an object, which shows you all the things in your Kubernetes cluster that wouldn't have been let in before the admission controller was added. And that could be based on the rules of the admission controller that the user can obviously change if they don't like our defaults.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas for CRDs for an admission controller. Like I'm returning what the admission controller through Kubernetes will allow me to return, which is why that message is a bit hard to interpret, right? Good lesson for shift left there, by the way. Nobody wants to see that message in Argo and go, what? But I would like to...
I can share that again if you want. You have no control over... You have no control from the admission controller over how this looks or the size of it or anything, right?
It looks better on the command line than it does in most logs. So, but I would like to do it so that is also in a CRD, so I can go get it again. So I can go grab the last known block error and it will print it out, and maybe even more detail, because then I'd be able to format it in Kubernetes format and have more detail than what the admission controller response lets me do. So there's lots of things. I'd love to have a session on it. Maybe we could do a live Zoom sometime with people who are interested and just brainstorm it.
That'd be cool. A little codified security admission control. Well, a codified security Kubernetes workshop. Because on that exact topic, not on the admission controller side, but while I'm sharing my screen on the customized side, like the version 2 of Customize, I really want to have this pointing to the exact file that the actual thing is in. Now, that file might come from HTTP. It might be, the issue might have, the line that triggered this policy might be coming from the base. It might be coming from the overlay. It could be anywhere. So to give the correct line numbers and the correct file is quite a lot more work. But Steve, you were kind of suggesting the idea that even if we could just point the user to, hey, This is in the base or the overlay. Like, I think for version 1.5, that's a really good start. But also kind of working within the bounds of Checkov to not break this line format for anyone that's parsing the JSON and suddenly a new framework breaks their stuff. So we're trying to keep within how Checkov outputs things. But yeah, again, thoughts on if you use Customize or Helm or features you want to see would be much appreciated.
Bro.
Cool. Hey, was that all of our demos working?
Yeah, that's why we're done on time.
Virtual high five there, I think.
Yeah,
there was no debugging, which is
No.
why we are at a good time.
Perfect.
Sweet.
All right, fantastic. We will endeavor to have more often office hours. If we do not, Matt, will we be at KubeCon?
We will be at KubeCon. KubeCon EU next month, Valencia, Spain. We will both be there, and we will probably be the people sticking microphones and cameras in your faces. But as long as you don't mind that, please come and chat to us all things infrastructure security or edge compute, which is my kind of little side hobby passion, or yeah, just anything. Oh my God, we're back at a conference in person. Would be most welcome.
Okay. We are also.
And with that,
I think we're hosting a party on Tuesday night of KubeCon, but we don't know anything about it yet. So join us on Slack to find out more.
we will have more news on that. Yeah, if you join the Slack channel, you will definitely get pre-invites to the party in case it sells out quick, as most of the good things at KubeCon do. And with that, Steve, I will let you get out of your very, very white room and start making tracks home. And thank you to everyone that's watched us for this episode. I'm Matt Johnson.
Steve Jaguar.
See you next time.